Well, Steve, we've had a long-standing relationship. So, if we talk about our partnership, I think it started back in 1997 when I joined PSDI MRO Software at the time. I remember being brought in and saying that I can't call on this account Projetech because it was somebody else's account because you were doing all the business for Maximo at the time as a reseller. So we've had a long history together, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually was wondering whether or not we want to mention that year or not. It kind of makes me feel a little aged, but it's been 24 years, right?
Yeah. What's interesting is that I think working with you over those years, it really taught me about how to work with a partner and how that's shifted. So I remember very early on, I was skeptical of what Projetech could do because you were this partner, you weren't MRO Software. And it took several years to go through that process. And then I think you went through this evolution of going to providing SaaS services before it was even called SaaS. It was called somebody else's computer that you were helping to manage. And then it probably wasn't until I came to Aquitas in 2012 that relationship really solidified because of all the work that you've done in what we'll call this SaaS market, if you will.
Yeah, it did take quite a while for our career paths to mesh in a singular direction.
Yeah.
It was an interesting journey, but always very professional all along the way. And I've always learned a great deal in communicating with you, whether we were working closely together or not.
Yeah, and I'm excited now. We probably have over 20 or more customers with you guys now, and it's worked really seamless. And there's certainly value in terms of our relationship and what you guys provide us and our customers, and hopefully what we provide you guys. So,
yeah, absolutely. What always amazes me, Ray, because we do have so many clients now in the cloud, is the diversity of the industries that you guys are in. It's really broad, and it's really impressive. If you'd like to take a second and just review that for some people.
Oh, sure. When we first started talking, I always thought of you as Mr. Healthcare because you had such a good specialty and understood JCO and all those things around that industry when we were first starting to work together. And, as I came to Aquitas and we started getting in different industries, we brought consumer packaged goods, we brought hard manufacturing, public sector stuff, utilities, oil and gas. So it ranges the whole gamut. And we've just seen that whole SaaS movement. It's obvious now, but when we first started this relationship, back in, that's already been 9 years, it really wasn't that obvious, right? It was just that slow movement, I think you will. Slow burn.
Yep. Nice evolution. It's turned out great for everybody, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I find the Maximo community as a whole is a pretty unique group of people. And there's a lot of different user groups and a lot of people that specialize in various areas, whether they're geographically allocated groups or vertical market groups. And I was wondering why is it that group has been so resilient over the years, would you say?
Well, maybe, I don't know if you'll agree with this or not. I think it's twofold. One is the culture that was set by MRO in the very beginning, when it was very customer centric and brought customers in to aid in their development. A lot of the product development that you see happening with Maximo back in the day, these industry solutions were all customer based. And their willingness to take that information and turn it into a solution and then support that kind of wholeheartedly and willingly, saying, hey, we'll talk to anybody, just bring it forward. And then that ecosystem of people who left MRO Software at IBM kind of brought that same culture with them. So you see this ecosystem of partners that have that same mentality of customer first. And then, of course, your business model has always been that way, is, hey, we'll not worry so much about the small things, but let's get the customer issues solved. And I think that's a big part of it. It was that that culture that existed, right? And it permeated down into the user base. But it's certainly fun. Do you remember one of the first ones that you did back in the day?
First
Maximo user group where we had all the Maximo Advantage customers come in.
Oh yeah, we did that in Cincinnati and announced that Maximo had acquired Maintenance Automation Corporation.
Yeah, no, that was exciting. Yeah, in those first 2 or 3 years, getting to come to some of those, and you had this just, maintenance people don't get a lot of attention too. I think that might be part of it. And so when you were able to bring those people together, and even now today, having people have a place to gather and share ideas that they go, hey, that guy right there, he looks a lot like me and has, he has the same trouble and challenges I do managing all this information. So I think it's interesting to see how that's proliferated. But my first examples of that were the Maximo world with, PSDI and then your user group meetings. So you can say you're a trendsetter. You set the stage.
Well, you can say I'm the trendsetter. We'll take
it. All right, I can say that about you. It would be too egotistical for you to say it about yourself, for sure.
Talk to me a little bit about the evolution, Ray. What are you seeing? I mean, you guys are out in front on IoT, and what have you seen change dramatically, and what do you think about the future?
Well, I'm going to go back to one of my favorite stories is when we were in Cincinnati at one of the hotels. I think we were going to go to the casino. You always took people to the riverboat afterwards. I think they didn't care about the content. They just cared about getting to that riverboat afterwards. But remember the big happening was IVR. And do you remember where we could open and close a work order with Maximo via the phone?
Yeah.
And I remember half doing that. I think we had a speakerphone and we had it in front of the group, and we were closing a clogged toilet via the phone. We were opening up the ticket and we were going to close that ticket out. And that was the big, oh man, if we could do that.
That was an aha moment for sure.
Right.
That was a flip phone. There wasn't anything smart about the phone.
Yeah. No, but I think we even did that from the phone in the room. It was hardwired.
I think we did.
Yeah. Hey, having that big flip phone, you had to take your carrier off and set it down. But the kind of two stages, right? You've got this infrastructure stage that has taken place, and we've seen what you've done proliferate the marketplace, again, ahead of your time. I always got to congratulate you for that. And then, but it's still that same thing, is how can I get information into the system accurately, quicker, easier, without fuss? And so you've kind of seen the evolution, I think, from this, mobile was thought to be, man, that was good. But yeah, that's a whole nother topic about why that wasn't always adopted in manufacturing plants and facilities. Field service it was, but not outside the manufacturing plant. And now almost skipped over that to where the machines are starting to generate the alerts and saying, hey, I need service, or I don't need service, so I don't have to do the PM. It's kind of taken this whole preventive maintenance and turned it on its head. Like that, hey, the cheapest maintenance that you can do is ones that you don't do.
That's absolutely.
What about you? What have you kind of seen kind of taking place with your business?
Well, I've always been fascinated by the evolution of our industry of, enterprise asset management and the parallels to communication technology. We were just talking about a wired phone or a bag phone, but it just seems like as connectivity has improved and bandwidth has become more ubiquitous and people have more bandwidth and lower latency. We started operating Maximo in the cloud in 1999, and that was a little bit of a trick when we were using AOL modem type connectivity, right? Exactly. And, those kind of connections were a little iffy back then, but now as broadband has come along, and the latency has dropped dramatically. We're seeing, you know, 0.5 milliseconds on some of our trunks these days. It just enables more technology. You talk about machines being able to communicate, machine learning, AI can be now applied. There's a lot more real-time analytics. You're not waiting for data to download. It's just simply available. And I think that's a big shift in the way we approach reliable assets, in my view.
Yeah, and I'm amazed that, you know, you're kind of like the test bed for everything. Is where you have hundreds of customers that are accessing that, and thousands upon thousands of users accessing Maximo. So you get the customers that come in and say, hey, can we connect into this? Like, you're getting those requests all the time. So you're starting to see that in kind of larger scale than even some of us in the ecosystem that do it, because you've got so many customers that are requesting that of you. And yeah.
No, that's true. The integration point has really exploded here in the last couple of years. People have decided they do have valuable information in other places, and they want to connect it. And while it's really exciting and there's a lot of it to do, you know, the repetitive nature of it makes it easier for us every day to execute on that. But you always have to pull back just a little bit and remind them of you know, the security ramifications. Where's the data coming from? How's it being transported? Who's it belong to? There's intellectual property issues that come into play. So you got to look at the big picture. It's easy to step on the gas sometimes, but ramifications are really important, particularly on the security side.
Well, and I think, again, in your case, because you have so many customers across so many industries, you know, they're often, the customers that have come to you are kind of on two sides. When one, you have the people that are the have-nots that didn't have the infrastructure, and that's why they turned to you. And then you have this bleeding edge people that turned to you because they saw the future and said, I don't want to be in the application support business. So they saw that. And what happens is those ones that have taken that bleeding edge, they get really excited about a lot of stuff. And you got to, whoa, let the market kind of settle out, make sure that's where you want to go. Although you guys are great about experimenting too, which is always another thing that helps in our partnership. You're always willing to take stuff that might seem kind of bizarre and not, you're not totally understanding it, but providing the infrastructure to do it for a customer.
Yeah, we enjoy it actually, Ray. It's just interesting. People have best customers, or the best ideas, I always say, originate with customers. You know, it goes back to your discussion with MRO back in the day. I think you have to listen to your customers and what are their challenges day in and day out. And that did, you know, blossom some of the best ideas.
Yeah. Speaking of challenges, I think that's a good kind of segue to something else, is that despite all the technology, you know, I see some of the same basic challenges that people are having too. And so maybe you got the have-nots and you got the bleeding edge, and then you got this big bell curve of people in the middle that are still suffering from the same challenges that they had when they first came to you, right? Yeah. Is, you know, they've got personnel issues, they've got accuracy of information, getting information in, dealing with just the daily grind of keeping their plant or facility open, let alone get to all this pie in the sky stuff. Even though it's more accessible, it's dealing with some of those day-to-day things. I think we see that a lot at conferences of what people are trying to do. Now, in your environment, you guys kind of let people upgrade generally at their own pace. You know, you keep them moving, you know, it's that gentle prods. But I'm sure you've got some older release customers. And do you think that's affecting them, that they're still dealing with just the general challenge, why they're not moving forward with stuff? Or
I think it's just symptomatic of the situation that they're in. They're either hesitant to move, or they have legacy systems that are going to be involved that they don't really want to address the problem yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? You guys have always been so good with process, and that that touch point with a customer and helping them understand, how they get from point A to point B is one of the things I think's made this work so well for both of us.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I like that our approach to that is stripping out the unnecessary stuff, putting the things necessary to get the information out of the system that makes it useful. And Maximo can do a lot. We could do everything if we wanted to. It's we find we often get involved in a lot of implementations where and ultimately they end up with us partnering on something is, well, we just want to get back to basics, and we want to get back to out of the box. I don't know how many times you've heard that term. Just get me back to out of the box,
right?
Which kind of speaks back to how Maximo's evolved to cover some of the things they were trying to do. But again, it strips out. Well, Maximo could always do it. You just went around the barn. To get it done.
It's the bleeding edge people that tend to want to try to make it something that fits their need. And instead of trying to do that through the core product in a traditional fashion, they might have somebody off writing a little code or making some changes here and there. And those people then become challenging when you want to upgrade them, right? Because they've done some things that aren't native. And it extends the upgrade cycles a little bit for us.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's amazing that again, when you get it down to, well, what do you really want it to do? And then you go, well, you don't need to do all this. This is how the system was designed to work with best practices. Let the system work, as opposed to, we get back to those things, and I'm sure you've been in it enough where they go, well, we're replacing this system. We wanted to do exactly what we're replacing. Well, why replace it? That's not the point of it.
They want the pick report window from Advantage is what they want, right?
Right. Well, maybe you don't need to. Maybe there's some other way to get the information that you wanted. So that's always interesting to see. Are you seeing with your customer base a higher propensity to take on bringing in sensor information and IoT information?
We see a lot of POCs going on where people are beginning to explore. Interestingly, inside the manufacturer, field services is wide open, and you'll see a lot faster movement there. But inside the manufacturing environment, so few companies have good wireless connectivity available, and it really is a constraint for them. It's chicken and the egg. They've got all this good information. They've got no way to get it back to the mothership because there isn't any connectivity internally.
Yeah, we're seeing a little bit of a change where, because that infrastructure is so much cheaper now and the technology to use it is getting so much better, that we're seeing that kind of come down. We used to see that all the time with mobile solutions, right? Because whether you're connected or disconnected, but this mobility piece was always inhibited by internal wireless connections, and even though there was disconnected solutions, but we're hearing where people go, oh, we don't have Wi-Fi in that. Well, look, just put a router, extender, or whatever it is, and let's get it done because it's cheaper. People understand that better. Yep. But back to your whole point about security, then there's all these other ramifications that come involved. People get concerned. Hey, they're going to steal my PM work order for a bottle filler. Really? What are they going to get out of that? But
no, I don't think there's big danger in the EAM data. The problem is that transmission point then becomes a doorway, and what you have to be careful of is where will that take someone inside that organization, or is used inside of my cloud. So we're extremely sensitive about where things originate and how they're locked down and filtered.
Now, I think that's important. Again, you see it based on your whole ecosystem of customers that you manage, and your diligence to security is important to every one of your customer. One customer fails, it can impact others. So no, that totally makes sense. And I give you a hard time because I know that's your soapbox is security, and rightly so. I think that's important.
It's hard to have the conversation with the prospective customer and not talk security. So
Yeah.
it's got to be front and center for us.
Oh, well, what do you think your customers have faced in general with this COVID and pandemic? What do you feel the impact's been on them and what's the long-term effects on it too?
Well, interestingly, I think some customers had very little impact because of the way they worked prior. What we have seen is a real growth towards, the cloud initiative. Companies that we didn't think would move for another few years. They always said, "Oh yeah, it's in the future. It's in the future." And then March or April of 2020, the future was upon them, and getting technicians into certain data centers to perform certain maintenance tasks at times was challenging. And the question all of a sudden was, well, why are we bothering with this to begin with? Why don't we just move it?
Yeah,
and,
right.
It's helped our business a great deal. We're very fortunate.
Yeah, so it's been good from that standpoint. From a challenge of how it's operated in the maintenance groups, right? I think you're absolutely right. It was this first, we can't bring anybody in to fix the stuff, but we have to bring someone in to fix the stuff because, especially in consumer packaged goods, that's where we really saw a big swing. We had one large manufacturer that produces furniture, and that first month they had shut down every one of their plants. And then it was interesting as the stimulus checks came out and people had more time, well, they wanted to buy furniture, and so their stores and everything started open, and they got ramped up almost to above production capacity of what they were doing before.
Yeah.
So on that consumer packaged goods side, as you said, they didn't stop. It was a short stoppage, right? People still needed food. They still needed toilet paper. They needed all the necessities. And even some of this, some of the car manufacturers had a big ramp, right? People had a lot of time on their hands to investigate stuff. Some of the other infrastructure stuff, I don't know. I think even general construction kept going, in a lot of ways. There was a couple of hard hit industries. Obviously, we share some casino customers, and that took a big hit. So
yeah, hospitality in general really took it right on the nose.
Yeah, but we've been in this business long enough so that regardless of the environment, the economic environment, or things going around, it still comes. You still got to keep the machines running.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I heard an interesting story that one of the universities I was talking to, they didn't have students on campus for 3 semesters, but they still had to do all the checks. They had to keep the equipment running, else they'd go back. And then you're in a much more worse situation than you are when the problems help. So maintenance is, it's not sales that's the backbone, it's maintenance.
Absolutely.
That's the backbone.
You have to keep all that HVAC equipment up to date, and you got to do your checks, and your fire suppression systems have to be inspected, and blah, 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 blah. It doesn't go away whether there's people in there or not. I mean, unless you go into a mothball situation. And the lack of a clear path forward wouldn't allow anybody to go down that road. So you just got to keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So it circles back to our culture. And one of the things that you said was, well, what makes our industry and ecosystem so different? Part of it's the product, part of it's the people, part of it's the mission of everybody engaged. It's a thankless mission that everybody needs and everybody calls on when things are not right.
Right. Yeah, I've always said that the only time you get a phone call in the maintenance department is when something's broken. And when everything's running smoothly, you're you're looked upon by the accountants as overhead.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Do it all the time. Nothing ever breaks.
Yeah, you never get a call going, "Hey, I just want to thank you for keeping that line 2 running, man. Production's great. I just want to thank you." Okay, talk to you later. Bye. It's get up here. Line's
Doesn't
not
happen
working.
that way. You're exactly right.
Exactly, kind of
Nature of the business, right?
yeah, that's right. And I think maybe the people that gather together to learn how to use Maximo to do their jobs better kind of appreciate that in a lot of ways. Sometimes it's subtle, and you see it's changing in the industry now, where it's maintenance is getting a lot more maintenance and reliability, because it's really the last. I don't want to say it's the last, but it's one of those areas that people look to drive cost and efficiency and apply technology to that they haven't.
Yep.
So
throughput, high availability, that's really, really important in commoditized environments in particular. When you're manufacturing, you got to be making it 24/7.
that's right. So
Yeah.